My advice is to look at the answer choices before you start solving any of these grammar questions because they sometimes just tell you what to care about. All these answer choices are changing the apostrophes. So we have to think about like, okay, what is doing the owning here? What possesses what? So we can look at the sentence with that in mind. In his groundbreaking book, Bengali Harlem and the Lost Histories of South Asian America, Vivek Bald uses newspaper articles, census records, ship's logs, and memoirs to tell the stories of the South Asian immigrants who made New York City their home in the early 20th century. So, okay, let's start with the story part. We do not need an apostrophe there because of is a possessive word as well. And it's multiple stories. So that kind of forces us, actually this is going to force us onto choice C. Yeah. So first of all, A and B are wrong because that would be one story, and they're kind of implying that it's multiple. So that also kind of messes us up. But even choice D has the stories plural, but then it has the apostrophe. But there's no ownership. The stories don't have anything kind of in their possession. The immigrants kind of do, which is why I think they're trying to trick you here into putting an apostrophe. So maybe I'll just give you another wording of this, because the word of kind of functions in the same way as an apostrophe. And there are certainly cases where we would use of, even though it's a little longer, just because of the structure of how we want to say our point. But we can kind of flip things and use an apostrophe instead sometimes. So what we could say is Vivek uses all these things to tell the immigrants apostrophe stories. And then we'd have to rewrite the end of the sentence, so let's just leave it there, right? So this is me putting this in the blank and then kind of like cutting the sentence off at that point. And it's kind of saying the same thing, right? That the South Asian immigrants have stories. That's exactly what it's saying in the way it's originally worded, but now I've kind of flipped it to use an apostrophe instead of the of. And notice now the thing that's doing the owning is the immigrants, and they do need an apostrophe because the stories belong to them. So this is the thing with English, is there's sometimes more than one way to say something, and we have to just be careful of the context and the particulars of the sentence that we're given. A lot of times you might choose to phrase things a little differently, but we don't have full control over the sentence. We have to kind of work with what we're given. And in this case, because of this end part where they wanted to kind of describe the immigrants a little bit better, it actually did make sense to phrase it the way that the question does. So to get rid of the apostrophe and to just use an of instead. So just kind of go with the flow, but don't let them bully you into putting an apostrophe. Really think about each instance and say like, okay, does the second thing belong to the first thing? The stories belong to the immigrants. In this case, if we wanted to ask that same question, we would say, do the immigrants belong to the story? And no, that's not the way it's worded. The of gets in the way. There's a lot of problems here, but they're definitely trying to tempt you because you probably don't know how apostrophes work very well. So you kind of sense a little ownership and possession in the sentence, and you just kind of throw it in there just for the sake of it. But if we know the rules, this is a no-brainer. C is the only way to phrase this, and it's not really even up for debate.